So today, we welcome Dr. Salomao and Cynthia to present your work with us in virtual exchange. And we have Jennifer, also the Senior Director from Office of International Initiative at Georgia State, to join us so that we can celebrate and highlight the work of virtual exchange at Georgia State as well. So the stage is yours. Feel free to like introduce yourself before you started the presentation.
Thank you so much, Ethan and Stuart. Hey, Jennifer. My name is Salomao De Farias. I'm originally from Brazil, from the northeast part of Brazil, Recife, which is similar to the south of the US if we compare, if you put the US upside down. So the south will be the northeast of Brazil. We are warm, we are friendly, and we have a funny accent in Portuguese, comparing from Sao Paulo, where Cintia is from. Usually people from Sao Paulo make fun of our accent in Portuguese. Yeah, I was bullied when I was attending my PhD at USP, University of Sao Paulo. That time people do not use bully, but because of my accent. Oh, you're from the Northeast. It's like, oh, you're from the deep South, something like that. But anyway, it's just an icebreaker. It didn't hurt my feelings because I do like my accent in Portuguese in Brazil. And so I teach currently at Georgia State University at the Institute of International Business, and mainly global business topics, and also doing business in South America. I have a study abroad. I direct a study abroad to Brazil, doing business in emerging markets, the case of Brazil, that goes to Sao Paulo and Rio. And also I coordinate the virtual exchange for our BUSA 4000 Global Business class. It's about 15 sections per semester, and we have close to 800 students engaged in virtual exchange with different partners around the world. About 1.5 years ago with Unifor in the northeast of Brazil. It's hard to find sometimes outside Sao Paulo and Rio undergrad that would be taught the whole class in English. So that's one of the issues in Brazil, unless you're in dealing with Sao Paulo. Mainly Sao Paulo, it's hard to find other classes that are just taught in English to do the virtual exchange. But we do with Portugal, Finland, Morocco, Argentina, so many different partners around the world. And with the study abroad, we partner with FIFECAPI, with Cintia. And Cintia, please, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we can start the presentation.
My name is Cintia, and I really like the Nordestino accent, right? Just as you did this icebreaker, right? But there is this, and I have a part of my family is from the Northeast, like my grandfather from my mother's side. So I like this. And when I travel, I start getting really easily the accent. I go and I start talking. Really nice. So I teach here at the FIFECAPI, right? I have a corporate background. I worked almost 20 years in information system management. So I went from the trainee in 1995, a long time ago, and I started there, and then I worked as a project manager and as a team lead. In fact, in 2008, I spent 3 months in Omaha and in St. Louis because we did an outsourcing project. They were transferring the data processing, all the processes to Brazil and to India to make things cheaper, right? And then we were the team that was there to learn and then to get all the work and to do it here, right, in Brazil. And since 2015, 16, I switched to the academic career because it was something that I always attracted me, right? I always want to know about the dynamics of organizations and of the companies, and also struck me a long time ago the issue of diversity, because when I started working, right, I started working 30 years ago, like we didn't discuss that clearly, like as we do today. And I was always confused and curious, to be more exact, on how to tell people about that, and to understand the dynamics of how things work within the companies, right? And so since I had my PhD in 2017, and since then I've been teaching entrepreneurship and project management, right? Because it's a system, information systems, but also I have been more like my research area has been more focused on the racial diversity management, entrepreneurship, and which has been quite a, how can I say, a really interesting journey, right? Because I could, when I was taking my PhD, this issue wasn't that we couldn't talk that open as we do now, and I can see that it's being demanded, like in a good way, in a positive way, like the academia has been searching and fostering these discussions, and I think this opportunity here to be talking about the culture exchange, and how to break this concept, right? Because of the distances that we have between countries, and even within the same country, as we were just talking, Salomon and I, right? And in Brazil, like it's a continental territory, so it's different cultures, and even this virtual exchange, and also to have students from the southwest here in Brazil to the northeast and northwest is important, because there are a lot of misconceptions and lack of knowledge transfer between these two regions, right? So yeah, I met Salomon like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I'm not 3 or 2, 3 already. Oh, nice. And because the FIFECAPI has this partnership with the Georgia State University and also Campus B, which is a company that they intermediate these programs of cultural transfer between universities or higher education institutions. And since then, and I have been participating, like, and showing the students from the United States, like the American students, a little bit of Brazil and about the cultural miscellaneous, right? The cultural landscape and the economic landscape. And it's nice and interesting for me to see that sometimes the Brazilian students, they get surprised as well, as because of this. I'm so Salomão, you can just interrupt me if I just. It's just because it's not on the script here, but when you talked about your accent, it was a good gap, like a good cue for me to go, because even though we are in the same country, it's so huge. And so this interchange between...
But Cintia, I'll let you go ahead soon. Okay.
Okay, sorry. So
okay, don't worry. Because that's going to go into how, when we take the students to FIFECAPI and they interact with the students, the Brazilian students, and with you, nice. And exchange more. And actually, Ethan and Stuart, it's interesting because I remember the first time we went, it was not a big group and it was mainly female. There was just one male student. And after the presentation, Cintia, you know, Brazilians like to hug and kiss on the cheeks. And Cintia was talking to every one of them, hugging them. And the male student, he was not expecting. She went and she hugged him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh," he was scared. But
That
that's the culture in Brazil, you know.
exactly. And I love that. Like when you go to the different cultures, you have to expose to those kind of, the language and the cultures. And that is how like we push the student to learn about different cultures and get out of their comfort zone, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
okay, I want to transition a little bit to the presentation. If that's okay, then you can actually like showcasing the virtual exchange and the work that you
Yes.
do for the review, it's not the reviewer. I've been thinking about reviewer so many times. I think the viewer of the recording, and if they can learn about the work that you are doing with
Yes.
with virtual exchange.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna start sharing a little bit. Oh, I'm disabled. If you can allow me to share the screen, whoever is the administrator, because I prepare a short PowerPoint presentation just to be more visual. Sometimes it's easier to than just talking. Okay, now I'm able to do it. I'm gonna share here a presentation, and I hope you can see it. Yes.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So Talking Brazilian, a cultural series seminar, experiential learning project. So that's what I'll be talking about. And so what we call experiential learning projects. The main thing I remember when I was a business student in Brazil, I thought we had a lot of exposure to theory, and I was very thirsty to have the hands-on experience. But different from other science like medicine that you can go and analyze and diagnose somebody, in business everything is intangible. And I was I want something more tangible to the students. That's why I like this kind of experiential project, and we do it here at the IIB on virtual exchange and on study abroad mainly. Of course there are other ones, but I'm going to focus just on those two. And this is how we can apply theory in practice, because when we go to Brazil on the study abroad, we have a live case. If Cynthia recalls, we have a real company. They present a case and a challenge, a question to the students, and the American students paired with Brazilian students for a more cultural immersion. And they will work in teams for 2 days to present a solution for the company. And it's interesting because the owner of the company, he flew from Rio to Sao Paulo to watch the students presenting, and to show that they value the feedback from the students. Okay, so why is important in international business, in global business? It helps students to be exposed, even if it's virtual, like in a virtual exchange, or if it's in presence, like going in a study abroad. They get hands-on. That's the main objective of the experiential learning project. And some of the benefits, learning outcomes, engagement, develop real world skills, cultural competence, and networking. They make friends in Brazil. Some of them are still communicating with the Brazilians. The study abroad was so funny. The first year we went, we had few students, I think 10 or 11. Then we grew to 15, 16. This year, the word of mouth so powerful that we had more than 80 students register for the study abroad to Brazil, and I only could take 21. So on March, we have 21 students going to Brazil, to Sao Paulo and Rio on the study abroad. So I guess people are interested in Brazil to learn, even it's a fun country, a big emerging market. So here we apply the consulting project. The students put the consultant hat on a collaborative online international learning, COIL, virtual exchange. Some places they call COIL, we call VE, virtual exchange. And this is very interesting. And I'm going to show the case that we did with Unifor in Fortaleza. And of course, the study abroad that we go inside in Brazil, and the students compete, in this case, competition using a real company and dealing with the Brazilian students. We are high context, Brazilian go in circles to talk. We like to talk a lot, and Americans are more objective. So that's a good thing for them to do it while we are in Brazil. The consulting project, what we do in the virtual exchange to start with, we ask the partner, in this case in Brazil, to find a company that want to expand abroad. It can be exporting, it can be any entry mode. And then the owner or one of the manager from the company makes a presentation to the students virtually, explain what it is the company, and launch like an objective. We want to expand in Latin America. We're from Brazil, we're from the Northeast, and we want to start by Latin America, mainly countries neighboring Brazil. So that was what we did with Unifor, that is the university in Fortaleza, a private university. And then they have to do some international market research, mainly secondary data, design some short, of course, strategic entry mode, analyze cultures to see how the product from Brazil can fit a different market, a different culture. It makes very interesting. And this is at the end, instead of a traditional report, they design a Google site, which is co-creative, interactive. They use technology, which they like it. They really like working the Google site. And at the end, it's very interesting, the outcome. This is a page that I designed. This was the case of Unifor. So it was in the fall of 2022. And we work with I designed the instruction in the Google site. I share the link with my students. They access and they have all the information for the project in the Google site. The company we work with was Catarina Mina. It's 95% of people involved in this company are females in Brazil. They come with a poor background. They usually do crochet, you know, and they are selling very cheap. And this woman in Fortaleza, she decided to help them and created Catarina Mina like a cooperative. Now she works only with women from the northeast of Brazil, in the very countryside, in poor regions, and now they helping them to make more money, to be better organized in a business manner. So it's social, responsible, it's sustainable, and it's helping the poor women in the northeast of Brazil. It has this background, which was very interesting, and the students really like it. And it's interesting because they export by the website and they sell it to Europe, even here to the US, but they wanted to sell more in Latin America. And they were asking students, challenge our students and the students from Unifor to work virtually in teams to propose countries for them to go in Latin America, and how should they go to the countries, partnership with resorts, or franchising or licensing, whatever it is that they're going to go there. I work with two professors from Unifor, as you can see here. So we put our names, we put our faces, and we ask the students to make things interactive and engage, and we help. We make meetings to scaffolding the project in two parts, so that they can be sure what they're doing and have a better outcome to the company. So the company, this is one of the example of the students report on our website. So Catarina Mina, we bet on the reinvention of ties among artisans, designers, and public. So that's one of their models. And you see here on the left, the company, you click on the website, talks about the company, the country that they are recommending Catarina Mina to go, how's this industry in that country, because they work with fashion. It's mainly crochet, purses and things like that. They do an analysis of the political environment, economic, social, technological, legislation. Let's say they recommend them to go to Chile, and they will present something about Chile and the entry mode. And then they record a video presenting the key takeaways, and they embedded the video in the website, which it makes it more dynamic. So they collaborate online, virtually, which is good. And like Cynthia was saying, it's only 1 hour difference, time zone difference, which it make easier. When we deal with Finland, it's about 7 hours. Portugal is 5 hours, which makes it more challenging. But I tell the students that's how it is in the real world. You need to try to work together and make it work. Also, we do ETIs, that is to identify events, trend, and innovation. We did that with Africa, Morocco, Tunisia. Right now, I'm doing with Portugal, and also I did with Finland. But the focus here is Brazil. So the project with Brazil was very interesting. One of the owners of the company, Catarina Mina, she really liked it. I invited her to talk to my Master International Business student, because her work is changing lives. It's not only about profit, but also changing the life of women in the northeast of Brazil, which is usually the poorest part of the country. And, there's a lot of violence against women, and sometimes they go through hard times, and now they have someone helping them. The products are not cheap, because she was Catarina Mina was the first company in Brazil to disclosure all the costs. How do they price the product? So they would include the profit, the cost, how much they're giving to the artisans, and etc. It's a very interesting project. In the study abroad, we go to Brazil, and that's when Cynthia is a great partner. She's been helping us with in FIFECAPI, talking to the students about Brazilian culture, Brazilian history, so that they understand a little bit more about Brazilian business. We travel during the spring break, and some people have a sort of prejudice against virtual exchange. They say virtual exchange is not the same as study abroad, actually going to the country. Of course, when you go to the country, it's a more immersive experience than the virtual exchange, but virtual exchange has its benefits also to the students. We traveled to Sao Paulo from Atlanta. We spent 4 days in Sao Paulo, then we go to Rio, and we return we arrive in Sao Paulo on Saturday, and we come back the Sunday at the end of the week. It's a first-hand exposure. Most of the students, they never travel abroad, never went to Brazil. They have a lot of things. It's funny that sometimes, even today, students think that we speak Spanish in Brazil. And I said, how can you apply to study abroad in Brazil and you don't know that we speak Portuguese? It makes sense, because if you look at Latin America, everybody speaks Spanish but us, because of the Portuguese. I tell the students some curiosities, for instance, that we have the largest Japanese population outside Japan, that we have the largest Black population outside Nigeria, and that people in Brazil start mixing races since the colonization, the 1500s. And so it's a very diverse country. And it's a fun country, like you can see here in the picture. In Rio, we go to Carnival Experience, where they have the location where they manufacture the costumes, the floats that we see on the Carnival. And we can actually dress up with some of the costumes, and all the students had a great time learning how to samba. You know, I'm from Brazil. I don't know how to samba. I don't know if Cintia does, but it's very hard to samba. You know, I wish I had the, you know, the flexible hips, but I'm not as bad as the gringos, but I don't know how to samba. You have to be born with it in your blood. Otherwise, it's so funny to see people when they try to samba and they don't know how to do it. I had a great time watching my students learning. Some of them did great, but some of them were just like gringos, just like, you know, me trying to dance samba. So the study abroad, oops, let me go back here. We go to companies, we go to big companies such as Natura, which is a cosmetic company that bought Avon, and they are in the US selling online. It's a very sustainable plant. It's an example in Latin America. So we deal with sustainability. The students get very impressed with the visit to Natura. Just to exemplify one, we go to PwC in Sao Paulo, where they are very keen about diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially with the Black population in Brazil, female population, LGBTQ population. So they are offering jobs and position and decision making to some minority groups that before did not have a place in companies such as PwC. We go to the stock exchange. We do some cultural activities. We eat at the all-you-can-eat barbecue churrascarias in Brazil, and they a kilo. They get very impressed with per kilo restaurants also. So they learn what it is, the Brazilian lifestyle, the type of food that we eat. And it's funny because sometimes they ask me questions of something that is so, I mean, for me, I'm so used to it that it doesn't call me the attention. For instance, by law in Brazil, all the sidewalks and the retail store, they have to have the floor with some touching for blind people. And they say, what is that in the sidewalk? What is that in here in the airport? It's because you have to have some, I don't know how to say it in English, but anyways, it's to help blind people to localize themselves when they walk. After Sao Paulo, we take a plane, we go to Rio, and of course, everybody wants to go to Rio. And Rio is more about culture, but we go to a big company called Rede Globo, which is a network company. They have the chance to see a manufacturing of soap operas. You know, soap opera is part of the Brazilian culture, and Rede Globo is one of the main place to produce soap operas. We go to a favela, Cantagalo, and we go to an NGO project that teach teenagers and kids to play the drums. When they leave school in the afternoon, they go and they learn about drums. And they actually go to carnival, you know, in the kids' presentation. And it's very interesting. You know, people have prejudice against favelas in Brazil. They tend to be violent. And I was, you know, should I take my students to the favela or not? Because you never know what's going to happen. But we go in a safe place. They have to sign a term of consent saying that they're not going to sue Campus B. It's funny because we go to the favela. That scared me. Because in Brazil, we always say, oh, favelas dangerous, favelas this and that. But it's a unique experience. I think everybody should go. And we show them another side of Brazil, and they learn about the favela. They get very touched with the people in the communities. And also, of course, we learn about Carnival, because Carnival is a big event in Rio, and it's a lot of money going on, a lot of business. And they really love the Carnival experience and going to the sightseeing, like at the Sugarloaf, the Christ, the Redeem, Copacabana, Ipanema, and you know, they have the time to engage. And one thing that is very interesting, and I think it adds values to the study abroad in Brazil, is the the case competition working with FIFECAPI and Campus B, where they interact with the Brazilian students. So we have teams of American students plus Brazilian students. Of course, everything is in English. They speak English, the Brazilian students, and they will work and see how is the Brazilian mindset, how the students can share their experience. They're young like them. They go out at night to a rooftop bar in Sao Paulo, and they make friends in Brazil. And I tell them they are young, go out with them, learn about the culture with them, ask questions to them. And we have the presentation of Cintia that I really like. She's been doing this with us, that gives a broad view about Brazil, Brazilian history, and all the vision sometimes that we have from Brazil. But with her, the students can ask questions, can interact with her, and that's mainly what I have to tell about the study abroad and the virtual exchange. And I'll let Cintia talk about her experience with us on meeting the American students and the work that they do with the Brazilians there.
Oh, great. Thank you, Salomão, for introducing me, and it set the pace, like now the cue, right, that you gave me. So, like I'm not sharing any PowerPoint presentations. I'm just sharing my experience with the students and Salomão. Like the first thing, like when we started working together, was exactly the possibility of showing these other international students a broader view of Brazil, right? Because it's normal, right? For example, when I last year, I went to Berlin. I spent 3 months in Berlin. And when I came back to Brazil, lots of people were like, oh, how were Germans? Are they too stiff? Or, because we create conceptions about some culture, and when you get there, right, you just like you see that it's not like this, like it's broader, it's completely different, as Salomão just shared. So with the students from the Georgia State University, I share with them about the Brazilian culture and also the political perspective and the historical perspective. So I can tell them that we are a young country, right? So as young as the United States, because sometimes they don't realize that we both of the countries came from a colonial background, right? So, and then they said, so like I showed them like other similarities. For example, the similarity of going through a slavery period, right? Like, of course, then in Brazil it was longer than in the States, but then I showed them like how this historical background impacts the present and things that we can do like to change this impact for the future, right? And so in this perspective, not only my intention is not only to break this, many times is a narrow perspective for Brazil, but also to show them opportunities that where they can work and create projects, not only entrepreneurship, the traditional entrepreneurship, but also the social entrepreneurship, such as Salomão was bringing with the Catarina Mina, right? So as my presentation is the first presentation they see, it's nice because it sets the tone, right? So what they're gonna find, not only in the projects they are developing, but also in the things they're gonna see when they go outside, and also when they share experiences within the companies and other Brazilian students. Another thing that I really think it's interesting, just like not only like a personal thing that I see, that it was not, interesting for them to see a Black teacher like teaching them, like in the first lecture, lots of girls, like Black girls, they came to talk to me. It was because for them, it was like a representativeness, right? That's an issue, right? Not only for them, but also here in Brazil. But it was really nice and reassuring, like for them, like for these minority groups, like to show a teacher like talking, right, and lecturing and showing like her or his career, right, and his skills for them, right, sharing this
Yeah,
knowledge
and,
with them.
if I may, Cintia is one of the few Black females in academia, in business, in accounting in Brazil, still, and it's a huge country. So she's relevant in that sense because she shows that it's the changing, although it could be in a faster pace, but it's happening in Brazil, right, Cintia?
Exactly. And also like of course we just have 1 hour to talk, right? But it's a way not only about my personal experience and also my figure, right? My image, but also in the sense of like I like to, my intention is for them to have a broader field, because and this at the same time that Brazil it's a really like interesting culture, right? You have samba and you have a lot of fun, but it's a paradoxical country. So it's interesting for them to see that, because sometimes, and even for you to work in an emerging economy, right? As a manager or as a social entrepreneur, it's important for you to, because it's different from a first world country. That's what I'm trying to say. It's different, right? When you go to Europe, in a developed country such as Germany, and when you go, for example, I went to Peru like this year, and with a German friend, and for him it was, my gosh, how do you live in Latin America? Because it's different, right? To live in a so especially so I try to teach them and like to present that to students, right? This cultural variables and the nuances and also the similarities, because the states in Brazil have lots of similarities, right? And so I try to show them to them. So it's really interesting. Um, for me, the other thing about this virtual exchange and the collaborative, it's another way for us, for teachers and for us professionals also to change, because to exchange ideas, because when first of all, that's how I met Salomão, right? It was a great experience for me to meet them, right? So we can expand our work, not only us in the individual aspect, but also as an institutional, like Ethan and Stuart, like Georgia State University and FIFECAPI and Unifor, like we can do more, how can I say, projects. And I think the virtual exchange and the virtual and the collaborative, that the partnership we have been doing in these last 3 years, they help us to find these opportunities. You know what I mean? Because we can work on other projects, not only research projects, but also projects to include more students, right? Because one thing that not only for the indicators, right? Because we know that business schools, they have to meet up with indicators, and international collaboration is one of these indicators, but also to create a knowledge that is more broader, right? Than a knowledge that only works in your setting. You know what I mean? Like, especially as Salomão was saying about other sciences, the hard sciences, right? Like biology or chemistry, we can experiment and do the mixing to see the results. The social applied sciences, such as management and business, um, um, we don't have this how to make these experiments like we do, like we open the business and we see how it goes, right? And one thing that is, in fact, it was one of the things that motivated me to get more specialized and to focus my research on racial or and the discussion of diversity, is that many times when you see the models, right? For example, the balance scored card, right? It's a really known model. It's done like within the North American, European contest, right? It's like that management with it's like that other, there are not other landscapes for management, only the United States and the Europe, right? But and many times these models, they don't work, right? Because, for example, like one thing that I showed students, right? It's about some characteristics in Brazilian culture. So like the improvisation, right? For example, this is really not only Brazil, but I could experience that in Latin America. The improvisation is really common. Like we have some schedule, but if something happens, we do some in another way, right? And when you are doing a model that is only strict, like a balance scorecard, or it might not work, like in this setting, like it just doesn't work because people improvise more, right? So it's not so restricted as we tend to see in the business and management research or the applied research, right? When you create models and everything. So that's something that this virtual exchange can contribute, especially because they are training new leaders, new managers, new CEOs, right? So it's a way for them to see that, that sometimes people take for granted, like they repeat too much, that's thinking outside the box, right? Because we have used this term so much. But I think this virtual exchange of showing them other realities might be a way to show them how to think outside the box. You can speak, Ethan, like, go ahead.
I just want to like raise my hand because I think that kind of like the topic of like the virtual exchange and the examples that we have is kind of like very critical to the development of the students, also like building the partnership between two universities. And I could see that a lot of benefit and impact from both sides, student, faculty, and like the cultural emotion as well. I just want to be mindful of our time. So we have like 4:48 right now. So I would like to open the floor to like
Okay,
Stuart or
sorry.
Jennifer, if you want to ask any question, so about the presentation.